or retired, they refired. And they are doing an awesome ministry and have really established us with Foursquare Disaster Relief. People here have been trained, and then they have been deployed, and they've just been and spent several days in North Carolina and then in Florida, and I just am so grateful. They just got home, and I'm so grateful y'all are willing to this quick a turnaround, share with us. So I want them to come. They're going to share, and then we're going to pray over the folks in North Carolina and Florida.
And I hate to make light of the praise and worship song, but given what we were just singing, I think the people in North Carolina mountains and in Florida would say, be careful what you pray for.
Spiritually.
You'll see some of that. First Mission, this is actually our rig we deploy with. So we go out in disaster relief. We are self-sufficient. We go out, although typically FDR does take care of housing and food and whatnot for everybody, but we kind of like to be self-sufficient. So we roll with our camper, and as you're going to see here, when we went to North Carolina, the camper ended up being quite pivotal on our very last day there. FDR is both national and international. Down in Florida, our team leader there, he was only on his second U.S. deployment. He is primarily an international responder. He's been in Turkey for the earthquakes and Ukraine at the beginning of the war there, although, as he stated, officially he was in Poland. He was not in Ukraine. So we go all over the world. And it's up to each responder what they want to do. They just want to respond locally if something happens here in Indiana, or do they want to go national like we do, or do they want to go international? The one thing with FDR responders is you are totally on your own for the cost. We do it ourselves. Everybody in FDR, except for 4 people that are paid personnel, Foursquare churches. Everybody else in, what did he say, 100?
It's
120? Yeah, I think about 120 or 130, I forget the exact number Richard gave us. Current responders that we have nationally, and everybody pays their own way to do this.
all volunteers.
Now, when we went to North Carolina, I have to say we were very blessed. We had a benefactor here at the church who gave us $500 to assist with our actual travel expenses. That was very much a blessing. On top of that, back in May, I deployed by myself to Ada, Oklahoma on tornado relief duty. And Ada is about where that little red dot is up there in Oklahoma. Ada is approximately about 30-minute drive northeast of Sulphur, Oklahoma, which was one of the worst hit towns. The night of the tornadoes, there was estimated to be up to 25 tornadoes across southern Oklahoma. A lot of those, if they touched down in farm fields, didn't do any damage other than to crops or to trees. 5 major ones, though, hit towns. Of that, Sulphur was the worst. The tornado then picked up after being on the ground for about a mile in Sulphur, literally jumped over Ada and hit the town of Holdenville to the northeast of Ada. Back in February, we had our FDR training here at the church, which was led by Jay Donnelly, who was our team leader in North Carolina. We had 2 people here from Ada, Oklahoma, Troy and Debbie.
Troy and Debbie.
Yeah. Jones.
They were
Troy and Debbie
actually
Jones.
here at Lifebridge for the training.
So they actually traveled up here for our training, and as it turned out, when I got down to Ada, we were actually staged at their home church.
Wow.
And so Troy, Debbie, and I actually worked together on our very first deployments. So that was kind of neat, and it was my first step into realizing that FDR and Foursquare churches as a whole is kind of like the military was when I was in the military. It's a very small world. And that proved itself again recently, because when we were down in, was it North? Yeah, North Carolina, one of the guys that was on our team was the son of the pastor at the church, and Tamara and I had actually trained with them at their church originally over in Quincy, Illinois. So I'm starting to find start running into a lot of the same people as we go out on these deployments, which is really quite neat. This is our team down in Ada, Oklahoma. We call ourselves the Motley Crew. You can kind of see why. And actually, the gentleman on the left was actually somebody that we actually went out to help that day. But we had him go ahead and take the picture with us. So this was actually one of the very first homes we saw as we drove into into Sulphur. The tornado in Sulphur, next one, was extremely dangerous. It actually touched down in a national park on the south side of Sulphur, Oklahoma. Crossed the highway, entered downtown Sulphur, stayed on the ground through downtown, and went all the way up into the residential zones, and just did a lot of damage. Now the guy that you saw in the other picture, this was his back patio. It used to have a roof. We were actually there to kind of put a temporary fix on that until the insurance could be done and all that, and they could get people out to fix it right. So this is the team getting ready to tarp it, and now actually tarping it, which was actually a lot of work. A lot of debris pickup on his property. We're really able to help him out quite a bit. This was actually our first place we worked at, and you can't see it, but there's actually another limb up above the one that's horizontal there, and it's horizontal as well. They had come down off a tree in the neighbor's yard. The one that's actually above that one is about 2 times bigger than that one that you're seeing. Where this tree that's fallen over here and the ones next to it, those 2 tree limbs up there literally were woven in between the other trees, like somebody had woven them like a basket. The power of a tornado, it's crazy.
It kind of swelled, the trees swell.
Yeah, and in the end run, for us to actually end up getting those cut down, we end up having to put ropes on those limbs and get 8 people on the ropes pulling the limbs out to get enough slack in it so the chainsaw actually cut them. It was a little crazy. So, this is a big thing we do. This is a big part of FDR. We pray with people. This particular place we're at, this is an emergency operations center down in southern Oklahoma. We're in a town about 5 miles north of the Texas border. And these were the folks actually running the emergency operations center that we were praying with. They, like many people we go to pray with, before we could pray for them, insisted on praying for us. And one of the things that I have learned now is we go out into these different sites and we ask people we can pray for them. More times than not, they will ask if they can pray for us first, which is just amazing. And it's really been kind of a neat thing because it's kind of not what you would expect when people have just been wiped out. But this one here, I have to introduce these folks to you. The guy in red is one of our team members, Nate Montez. He's actually a pastor for Foursquare in Adelanto, California, in the upper desert near Edwards Air Force Base. Nate is a person who never thought his church would be directly involved in disaster relief. However, the recent wildfires in Southern California and the San Gabriel Mountains, his church ended up being a shelter for both humans and for pets. The funny thing about it is 80% of his congregation are homeless people. And he was shocked to find out how many showed up on a daily basis to church to volunteer to help. He was blessed in a major way. So he was really shocked that he, just shortly after having been in Ada, his own church was now being used in disaster relief. The other 2 were Mike and Shelley. These folks we met when we got to Ada. Actually met them the very first day we were there. And this is actually a Baptist church we're at here. This was acting as the town shelter in Sulphur, Oklahoma. Mike and Shelley were indigent before the tornado hit. They got completely wiped out. We'll go to the next picture. The top corner apartment was Mike and Shelley's apartment. If you look through the window, you'll see roof structure up there. The roof did not get blown off. It's actually down in the apartments. That tornado hit in the dark of night. And when it hit, the sirens had gone off. Mike and Shelley ran out the front door. They had to run across the street, down a city block, across another street to get into a parking garage in an brand new Indian hotel casino for the Choctaw Nation. That was the town shelter. As you can tell, Mike was a big boy. Shelley not so big. She probably weighed 90 pounds. Mike was probably about 300. As Mike was running across that last road to get to the parking garage, he suddenly felt his arm go back, go up, turned around. Shelley's feet were in the air above her head. The tornado was literally trying to suck her in. Fortunately, he was a big guy. He yanked her down to the ground, got her in the garage. Amazing thing. Both of them were saved the next day at that Baptist church. Now, I have to tell you, we made a point of visiting these two every day. They were amazing people. For having been wiped out, their spirit was out of this world. The morning after, they had gone back to their apartment because they obviously left without wallets, cell phones. They'd also left 3 cats behind. They only found 1 cat. They found her wallet, her cell phone, and his cell phone, but could not find his wallet. 2 days later, a guy at the casino tracked him down at the shelter and said, "Hey, we have a lady at the casino, she's got your wallet." She had found it 1.5 miles away, laying in the middle of an intersection. That's how far the tornado carried her. He got the 2 of them hooked up. She gave Mike his wallet back. He didn't even look at it. She left. Only then did he look in his wallet. There was enough cash in the wallet for him to go buy a car.
Oh, wow.
Which was a blessing and a half, because he'd already found out FEMA was going to resettle them in a town where the nearest store was 20 miles away. In Sulphur, they had everything within walking distance. They didn't need a car. Had never had one. The day we left, he was going to buy a car. Absolutely got blessed. But the third day that we were had met with them, we pulled in the parking lot. Mike was running out, and he's got his arms there, and he's, guys, I got to tell you my prayer story. The night before, he says, you know, Mercy Chefs is here, and they're feeding us, and they have really good food, but it's a little food. He says, we're meat and potatoes people. He says, so I prayed to God last night for a cheeseburger. And I'm not kidding you, 30 minutes later, a guy in a pickup truck pulled up with his pickup truck bed full of hot cheeseburgers. And with a sheepish grin, Mike goes, I ate 3 of them.
What's really neat about Mike and Shelley is they got saved.
They got saved
right after
the tornado.
Yeah. So they were new in the Lord, and still are, so we want to remember to pray for them.
Yeah, they were really neat people though. So, the tornado, you know, its damage is primarily wind damage. So now, beginning of October, Tamara and I both deployed down in North Carolina. We operate primarily Forest City in Hendersonville, North Carolina, which are roughly right in this area, just southeast of Asheville. And now we have a whole different kind of damage we were dealing with.
Yeah.
North Carolina had a once in, they're estimating 8,000 or maybe even a 10,000 year event. Hurricane Helene literally stalled over the mountains for 9 hours and dumped 30 inches plus of rain.
Wow.
And unfortunately, they had already had a wet summer, so the ground was water absorbed already. The water had nowhere to go but down. Yeah, and if you think of the fact that every single little valley in the mountains is where they built towns at the bottom of the valleys. And every valley has a creek or a river. Every single town in the mountains got hit hard by flash floods. The devastation was horrible. It was everywhere. And this was actually taken from where we were staying, a very nice couple's house we were staying at. You know, it looks so beautiful. It's almost decries what actually happened there.
Yeah.
And the next photo we can see is, we were very blessed before we left. Like people in this church, the Sunday before we left, and we deployed on Monday. Yeah, Monday. And
We had like a day and a half to get ready to go.
Yeah.
So everybody's giving us all this money.
yeah, and we literally, after some people here at church gave us some cash to take and go get supplies with, we had an American Legion Riders meeting at our post up in Auburn. The American Legion Riders handed us $500 check. The Legion itself handed us a $1,000 check. So needless to say, my wife got to go on a spending spree, spending almost $2,000 of other people's money.
It was pretty cool. We spent, can you hear me okay? Yeah. Without this? Okay. We spent $1,000 before we left, because the American Legion in Auburn gave us $1,000 on top of the $500 that the American Legion Riders gave us, and then all the other money. So we went to our local Walmart, because we didn't know if there'd be anything to shop there. So we loaded up the RV big time with all kinds of things, with blankets and diapers and
Food.
all kinds of stuff. So we we were on a mission. We took every single blanket off the shelf, actually.
And it was quite interesting because when people realized we're like piling all this stuff in 2 carts, people were coming up to us, "Are you going down to North Carolina?"
Yes.
Yeah, yes, we were. You know, people were figuring it out.
Yeah.
So this is our team in North Carolina. The gentleman in the center is Jay Donnelly, who came here to do our training here at Life Bridge. And he's, and this is Pastor Paul, who was actually the pastor of the church in Forest City that we were at. Yeah, well, I should say right now, assistant pastor. He's taking over full-time in January because the current pastor is retiring. So they're in their transition period. And needless to say, Paul got baptism by fire.
Yeah, he did, because his home was
Yeah, he was hit
pretty
hard.
hit hard. It was,
Yeah, he took a
he
lot
showed
of
us a video, and the water was just like a waterfall coming out every seam of his roof and ceiling and walls.
Even the dining room chandelier, the water was coming down the chandelier.
But,
Yeah,
but he was also leading the sheep,
yeah.
trying to help them that were also.
So he was literally having to ignore what was going on at home in order to take care of his own congregation and the community. And it was really kind of nice because when we go out, our number one goal is to provide relief to the pastors we're working with. They are actually our bosses out there. They're the one that give us our missions. They let us know what they need. And as in Pastor Rick and Pastor Paul's case in Forest City, the last weekend we were there, we were able to give them a weekend off. They had been going 7 days a week for 2 weeks solid, dealing with this disaster. They were so relieved to get a couple days with their families. It was really nice to be able to give them that break because we had got things caught to the point that they could do that. So, and that's really our main goal, is taking care of them.
And at Pastor Paul and Pastor Ricky's church, that's where they had a distribution center there. It was already established, but we were able to help organize it and get it a little more functional. Over in Hendersonville, where this picture's at, Pastor Corey, he was like a deer in a headlight. You could tell he was overwhelmed, and he was a young pastor too. But they had this distribution center they were trying to build, and that's basically what we found when we got there. So we were able then to.
This was actually, just 2 weeks after the hurricane hit. This building didn't exist prior to that. They had just poured the concrete floor the day before. This was going to be.
So they literally built this. It was really interesting because Russ has taught me how to build things when we did our cabin and that, but they were literally building this from the outside in, not from the inside out. It was because we were doing this, stocking this, and getting it functional while they were literally building the walls and.
They were literally constructing it around us. It was pretty crazy. A lot of people, a lot of cogs in the wheel working at the time. This is, as we pretty much got everything into here, all this stuff that is in this building at this point was originally in their sanctuary.
Yeah, so they couldn't have church.
They couldn't have church.
In the sanctuary.
That following Sunday morning, they had church. We had them cleaned up, ready to go. They knew, had they not gotten our help, they would not have had church that Sunday. It was not going to happen. They didn't have the people, they didn't have the time to do it. They were so busy with other stuff. Again, and this is actually up at Lake Lure. We're actually at a Baptist church here that we've gone up and visited. These guys were the front line of one of the worst parts of the North Carolina disaster. Lake Lure is where the town of Chimney Rock, 5 miles upriver, actually ended up in the lake.
Wow. Chimney Rock is
you're going to see some pictures here in a second. And right now, if you try to go to North Carolina, you literally cannot go through the Smoky Mountains to get there. I-40, I-26, both got washed out.
Yeah.
So you can't even go by way of Knoxville and try to get over. We actually had to go east to Columbus, Ohio, catch 77, go to Charlotte, and then work our way back west.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm a long way around. But, this is the mainstay of what we do. We pray with people. And we do a lot of it.
Yes, we do.
And it's really neat. There was another mainstay up there. This was how a lot of communities in North Carolina are getting their supplies now because they are totally and completely cut off. And they are relying on the Army to fly supplies into them at this point. So we were seeing a lot of ships flying around up there.
And I'm sure there's some video, there were some shots in here soon where you can see that all the roads were washed out.
This is Lake Lure. What you see there,
It's chimney.
all that debris is Chimney Rock, North Carolina.
It came down.
It's in that lake, from 5 miles away. And at this point, they had boomed it off because they're starting to clean up the lake. Go to the next one. A little closer up to you. So this is the river outflow. It actually goes up under the road here. And what they're doing is letting debris out a small amount at a time out of the booms. As it goes over the outflow, the excavators are scooping it out, loading up the National Guard dump trucks and hauling it away. The boom is only holding a small amount of debris right now. A lot of it's submerged. It's going to be years for them to get that thing back to normal. Chimney Rock, the road, one and only road into Chimney Rock, is now literally the river. There is no road anymore. It's gone. And amazingly, though, one of the things that survived in Chimney Rock, and one of the only few buildings that survived, was the fire department. So they were actually able to help the few residents that our stranded whose houses were high enough to survive it. So they do at least have some help there, which
So
is
how
nice.
does distribution centers, then you can take generators and,
The-
get some foods out, so.
This again, we're up at Lake Lure. This was actually acting as a distribution center. This was a hardware store.
It was heating and air, right?
Or heating and
Heating and
heating and
air.
yeah. And the day after the flash floods hit, they opened up their store so people could get hardware supplies. And next thing they knew, people just started showing up and dropping off supplies to them there. And next thing they knew, they'd become a distribution center for Lake Lure.
And it was massive.
It was.
It was neat to see the community come together and just fill this place.
And the one thing you learn about mountain people is the mountain people, neighbors take care of neighbors. And they were really doing that. Because I can tell you, the government isn't there.
Yeah.
I don't care what the media says. We saw one FEMA motorhome and it was at Lake Lure. That is all we've seen between boat deployments.
Wow.
And everybody in both places kept asking FEMA who.
Well, they were asking us, are we FEMA?
Yeah, we actually had that asked of us in Florida if we were
Oh,
FEMA.
my goodness.
So it's really been a little crazy because most of the relief efforts that have been going on down there have been almost 100% faith-based organizations that have stepped in.
And it didn't matter what denomination,
No.
it didn't matter what
And it's one of
color
the
your
neat things
skin was,
because
none of that mattered.
we do work
Just
very
come
closely
together.
with Samaritan's Purse, with Convoy of Hope, several of the others out there. Red Cross kind of does their own thing, but this house here, I think the previous photo kind of showed, that house is actually laying in the road. It was up the hill. We were showing photos by Pastor Paul of a house that was up on the hill above the road. Now it was down below the road, laying in the creek bed. There was 4 family members in that house that rode that house to the creek bed. 3 of them were found the next day, perished in the house. 2 days later, Grandpa was found a mile down the river, perished, still in his wheelchair.
You hear
it's just a
stories
mess.
like
Yeah.
a lot.
You know, one guy up and his wife up there, they lost 11 members of their family in what they call Clark Valley, which it actually has another name, but most of the residents of that valley are Clarks. And 11 members of his family living in that valley were wiped out.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's just horrible
And
devastation.
this is from the Hurricane Helene,
Yeah, this is from
Which-
Helene.
but you're gonna see how Florida was affected by it. It's amazing, they're 2 completely different devastations.
Yeah. Because Helene up in Carolina is a lot of mud damage. A lot. Yeah, and it just, water, mud, just took out everything. Yeah, this is one road that's barely survived. And you can see though, it was up on the road. And even the roads that survived like this, you hit spots that you were trying to go around, areas that were washed out and would barely have room to get by. A lot of the roads, you can only get by with ATVs or UTVs. There just wasn't much room to go through them if you could get through them. So, this was back in Forest City. They had all this water sitting in the foyer of their sanctuary.
It's a lot.
And they had a town, Spruce Pine, up in the very northern mountains that needed both water. Spruce Pine virtually has no water.
And that's-
So they had lots of bottled water, but that doesn't do you real good for taking showers or really for doing any major cooking. So they needed both water up there. Yeah, this was on our last day. We're getting ready to head home. And one of my biggest concerns when we got up to Spruce Pine was we were going to have to backtrack all the way to Asheville to get to I-40 to go east back over towards Statesville, North Carolina, catch 77, come back up. We were looking at almost a 6-hour extra additional trip. As it turns out, Spruce Pine turned out to be our blessing.
And that was northwest of Asheville, which was really it.
Yeah. So this is our camper. We loaded 3,000 pounds of
Oh,
water.
my goodness, that's a
To
lot.
take up there, yes.
If you look at that little angled door at the back, that's our bathroom. There's another 6 drums inside the bathroom.
Yeah. Filled it full.
That's a
There's-
lot to pull.
Literally
Until the
80.
tires started to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to put that space in there because we were going to way overweight the trailer. But
And I kept telling him, bring it on, bring it on. And he's like, we have to do that. Oh, okay, I didn't think about that. You know, I just wanted to get the water there.
so
We
we
did
had.
3,000 pounds, that's a
So
lot.
we headed off to Spruce Pine with this water, and this is Spruce Pine now. We're actually unloading the water up there at the distribution center at a church up there.
Thank God.
And of course, as usual for the mountains, it's a Baptist church. Sorry, Pastor, but
It's true though. And they were great.
they were great folks.
Yeah.
We got all this unloaded, and while we were unloading, we were talking with one of the guys because we'd seen a road that I knew went back to 40, almost a straight shot. I'd asked him, is there any chance of getting through? Absolutely not. The road's washed out. Great. He says, but, he says, they just got a back route out of your open yesterday. And he gave me the directions out. It's the one and only way to go north out of the mountains of North Carolina right now. It's all back roads, 2 laners, and every town we went through was devastating.
It was.
But
I'll show you a lot more pictures.
we popped out 8 miles east of Kingsport, Tennessee, and caught a road that took us right into the north side of Kingsport to catch US 58, which comes out right through Cumberland Gap. Her dad lives 7 miles north of the Cumberland Gap. He's 87, lives on his own, and gave us a chance to stop for an hour and check in on her dad. It was actually a blessing from God that turned out that way.
He was fine, he only lost electricity for 2 days, and he's high enough on that part of the Appalachian Mountains, and Cumberland Mountains, so he was fine.
So on our way home, we get emails from FDR that they're looking for people to go to Florida.
Of course, we're ready to go, you know.
So
So,
we went in and put the forms in. And I'm really thinking, I knew they liked people to have a week or more between appointments. But they were really hurting for people because people are spread out all over the place right now for FDR. And sure enough, we get home, and the next day, I get contacted by Pastor Richard, who's going to be the team leader, and he says, you know, we kind of want you guys to go, but we're a little concerned that you're going to be rested and ready to go. And I said, well, you know what, we got home at 1 o'clock in the morning, we got a good night's sleep, I'm actually cleaning up and redoing the RV right now to get it ready to go, and I said, we can roll by tomorrow afternoon. Are you sure?
Yes,
I
sir.
talked to Jay, and he's a little concerned, you might be too tired to go.
Because he knows-
No, we're ready to roll. And it's we were only home a day and a half, and we turned around and headed down to South Pasadena, Florida, which if you don't know where that is, the church we were at literally was 1 block from St. Petersburg city limit.
before we talk about Florida, I just want to say something about North Carolina. That was my first appointment, it was his second, so he had a little bit more of an idea what to expect. And they always have debriefings in the evenings, so that you can process a little bit of your day, maybe have a little, like Jay had study or some scripture, ministered to us in that, because it's intense. But the thing that, we both have talked about this, and when I first got involved in this, you know, you're thinking we're there for the victims of these, and you are, you're there for the victims of these horrific disasters, feeding them and clothing them and doing what you can to meet their needs. But what I learned the most out of North Carolina was that we were there really for the pastors. And I didn't really ever think of it like that, but we were such, I know we were a relief for them. They were so overwhelmed. And it was beautiful to watch them at the patience and just what they did for their congregations and for the community. You're going to see Pastor John, he didn't have a church anymore. I mean, it's pretty bad. I mean, you're going to see pictures of it. That's a lot of repair that he needs to make.
The church there took 4 feet of water in their
Yeah.
sanctuary. They took 2 feet of water in their fellowship hall.
So they really, their church is not usable right now. But like he said, what did he say?
He said,
It was so
our church may be down and out, but our parking lot works.
Yeah. So we made that parking lot work. But that was the biggest thing that I realized, that we're there to help the victims, but it was so critical for us to be there for those pastors. We were able to pray for them, we got to know them personally, and they were so good to us. I mean, we needed nothing. And so but I just want to mention that. We need to really keep not only the communities in prayer, but I think we need to really keep these pastors and leadership in prayer, because they're going through a lot, and they're amazing people. I just gained, that was my biggest takeaway, I think, from that, is how important it is that this not only is a mission for the community, but it definitely is for the pastorals and the team leaders.
And unfortunately, FDR comes in for a number of weeks, but then we're gone and they're still dealing with disasters. And this was our team down in Florida, along with the 2 pastors, Pastor Marcus, the shorter, dark-haired gentleman who's also their Spanish pastor.
Yeah, he's cool. He plays guitar, but does worship.
And Pastor John there, the tall one in the back.
Yeah.
This gentleman here in the creation was actually our team leader, Pastor Richard.
That guy's a machine, by the way.
He is.
This guy, he used to do burpees, if you know anything about CrossFit, so he's really fit, but I couldn't believe it. I didn't know if he was ever gonna run out of steam. But he was starting to slow down the last day. But
Yeah. Last day was finally even getting
It
to
was
him.
amazing.
And as you see, we've got a distribution center kind of set up here out in the parking lot, because the parking lot still works. Yeah, we were running a drive-through distribution center there one day.
And that's a good point, because there's nothing there, so we had to go get food. That was another great spending spree. We got to go to Costco's Sam's Club. We
Spent
spent
$2,700 at Sam's Club.
Yeah, but we needed food for this distribution center, so we went and we got the food. It was great. So, and then we had 4 pallets that we ended up obtaining. This is around the church.
Yeah, this is the neighborhood right where the church sits.
This is what every corner, every block looked like. Everywhere you looked, there was 15, 20 feet of debris. And then I'm thinking, as we're looking through all of this, these are these people's lives. I mean, they're materialistic things. And everything, I mean, they were stripped of everything.
Now, the real kicker about this neighborhood is 4 to 6 blocks inland from the bay.
Yeah.
And yet it took 4 feet of water to water.
Yeah, it's a surge. It was just,
That's how big the surge was there. It was an 8 to 12 foot surge. So, right back at the shoreline, it got that. But it's still 6 blocks in, it's still 4 foot of surge coming in.
Can you while we talk a little bit more, can you get me to the 5, since it's all the building?
Yeah.
He didn't have time to put more.
Now, this was
but I can
actually,
get you
this
one.
was next door to a house we were working at. A huge tree had come down in this guy's house, and he was in the house at the time.
Oh, wow.
Fortunately, didn't get hurt by it, but did a lot of damage.
Here, I want you to see some faces of the people that we served. This is Patty. She was the second person we helped. Now, in North Carolina, we did more distribution and build things and minister to pastors and that, and support them. In Florida, we were doing, oh Lord have mercy, we were doing a lot of raking and lifting
We
and,
got drywall,
yeah. And with
roofing.
Patty was 80-some years old, and she had a lot of debris around in, her backyard, front yard, and so on and so forth. And through us being there, I think Russ, you're the one that discovered she had roof issues. So Richard and Russ were able to go up and mend the roofs, so, and it didn't need a complete roof, so they were able to help. How will I get to the next? Do I just hit that? Okay. This is still more pictures around the church.
And I can tell you, when they say roofing really burns you up, it really does when it's 85 degrees, 100% humidity in Florida.
It's hot.
And I worked on 2 roofs down there, so.
It was amazing, you just persevered, you don't even, you know you're sweating and you know you're dying, but you don't think about it until the end of the day when, you know, but you're just on a mission, it's just amazing. And these people appreciate it. We had this one guy, I forget his name, the one we moved from a 2-story, now there's no electricity, Doug, yeah, and his significant other. There's no 2-story, there's no electricity, so and they live 2 stories, so you have to take they had 5 days to get out of their place. They condemned it.
Everything had to go down the stairs.
So we had to move everything out,
Which
load
was
it up,
fake news.
and move it to the new place, and they lived 2 stories up. So that was an interesting deal, but we made it happen, and we did it, and it was just amazing how God gives you the ability and the strength. You know, you just go beyond what you think you can do. You're not even paying attention to it, honestly. So Doug and his significant other was the first, and then Patty was the second. And usually most of them took a day to 2 days to complete. But these are people we can pray for. And Patty, and you know, you get to talking to these, being the woman probably, because the guys are doing the man thing on the roof. You have more time to spend I have more time to spend with her. And she says, you know, my daughter Kim and my daughter Vicki, they both left the Lord. They've abandoned. They don't even go to church anymore. And she said, would you just pray for my 2 kids? You know, and they're grown adults, having their own kids now. And I said, absolutely. So, you know, when we prayed together with her, we made sure to pray for Vicki and Kim. And I still wanted to continue to pray for them, that until I hear a word from her, that they're back in church, you know. But, you know, it was just conversations like that. We began to meet more need, and it was just really neat. So, anyway. Yes.
The day before this picture was taken, the morning this picture was taken, we were out on a job at a gal's house named Celeste, doing a lot of yard cleanup work, a lot of chainsawing. She actually had one limb that come down on her roof, did a little bit of damage, but not bad. And we Pastor Richard and I had spent quite a bit of time on a tree around her side yard that we had actually used the winch on the FDR truck to try to winch it to the curb, which was only a move of about 10 feet. Well, the tree pulled the truck. That's how big this thing was. The tree wasn't giving. By the time we were done, we chopped it up to a bunch of blocks of wood that probably weighed 100 to 150 pounds each, and still had to winch them to the curb. So we've been using that winch quite a bit today. It was the first time since FDR got this truck a year ago that winch has ever been used.
Wow.
So later that day, while we were out on this job, the 3 of us, our other guy, James, had taken this rental truck to Orlando to pick up a load of food for a distribution they were going to do the very last night that we were there. So he gets back and he's got all these pallets of food. And in the very front up there is 4 pallets of shelf-stable milk that were really heavy. Well, we unloaded by hand the first 2 pallets to come out. And Pastor Richard was like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. Now, we have no lifting equipment, no pallet jacks, no forklifts, nothing. He comes with the idea to winch these pallets down the aluminum ramp on the rental truck.
It was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, we actually have video of it, which
We don't
I didn't
have
get the
time.
chance to get it on the computer, but one by one, we winched these pallets down this aluminum ramp, and everyone that came down, we were hearing this ramp popping and creaking and moaning, and we're like, how many wells on this thing are breaking right now? We didn't know if we were going to make it to the final pallet, but we did, fortunately. None of us had the guts to look on the underside of the ramp to see how many wells had broken. But it was an ingenious tactic to solve a problem.
And we got it all unloaded, got the distribution center set up, and I know we only got like 1 minute left, so. But we prayed a lot. With Celeste, she had her grandson there that day. He's got 2 kidneys, but they're both on one side. So we were able to actually pray for JD, DJ.
DJ.
And and then also Joanne, so, but overall, I mean, there's a lot more, but, you get the gist. It was an amazing trip, and I think the neatest thing about all of it was how resilient that these people are. We had no negativity from anybody, and they lost everything, and I feel for Joanne, because she is a widow, and she just, we spent 2 days just sorting through things, and everything had to go into the trash pile, pretty much, you know, I mean, just everything, and she's the one that had everything cut out of her, up to 4 feet in her house, but the neat thing about it is her husband was a veteran, he was a Vietnam vet, he died of cancer, more than likely from a presumptive illness, so I'm hooking her up to get her to go to the VSO in her county to apply for the benefits so she can get what he earned.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, so I mean, just little things like that happen, that was pretty cool, so, but anyway, that's that, Pastor.
And just one last real quick thing, one of the biggest lessons I learned out of 3 deployments now is no 2 deployments are the same. It's always different, which is really quite neat because it does keep it very interesting. You know, nothing gets boring by any means.
Praise the Lord.
This
So
is
neat
just
things.
phenomenal. Thank you, guys.